Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by Sheridan.
G'day.
And this is episode 4 of The Player of Games, the second book in these Culture Books. And it is the 28th of April 2023, just to provide important context as the years roll by. And huzzah, we finished a book, and Sheridan's read a chapter in 2 weeks. So
actually, it was less because I didn't start it until the weekend.
I kept saying it's only 4 pages long.
It's not 4 pages long, but it is what I would describe as a pleasant length chapter.
So what do we do at this point, Sheridan?
You are getting 30 seconds to do a recap of the entire book so far.
Minus chapter 4, of course.
Yes.
So when does my time start?
3, 2, 1.
So on one side you have the Empire of Azad, which is a lot like our world but a bit more advanced, and then you've got the Culture, which is a bunch of robots keeping pet humans. The Culture picks their very best human at playing games and sends it off to humiliate the Empire of Azad. They succeed in this, and the Empire of Azad falls apart, and the Player of Games is coming home.
Yay!
10 seconds left on the clock.
Look at you, you've just perfected it after months and months.
All right, if you can't tell us what happens in this chapter in 30 seconds, I'll be really upset. Are you ready to give it a shot?
Yep.
Go.
Gergei's asleep on a ship. He wakes up, and Ye and the other drone's there, and he tells them the whole story. He has sex. The story ends. Then we find out who the narrator is.
You done?
Done.
All right. 13 seconds left on the clock. Well done, Sheridan. Okay, so I guess...
Did I miss any key moments?
Not really. I mean, obviously, Gergei's... anytime you climb lofty heights, the downside is it takes a while to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any highlights for you in this quite short chapter?
Oh, well, so many because I was able to fully absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
Given I have the memory of a goldfish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess first of all, starting off with his decision to sleep all the way home.
Mm-hmm.
That was clearly because he was probably a bit burnt out, I suspect.
Oh, entirely burnt out. Yeah, huge adrenaline deficit, I would say. But it's really painted this as a trauma victim. He's got PTSD, something rotten. But also, he doesn't have any games to learn. He's really not sure what he's going to do with the rest of his existence. He's never going to get another game like Azad again.
So what did you think of the the final interaction with Fleur Imzaho?
I just want, before we get to that, just the description as the limiting factor flies down to through the Chiark orbital to Gergei's house, where he the description that a sea ship, a liner on the ocean and bright with lights, blasted its horns and set off fireworks as the limiting factor went over a kilometre up. The ship saluted too, using its effectors to produce artificial auroras, roaring, shifting folds of light in the clear, still air above it. Then the two ships sailed on into the night. This is part of my thing, like the Culture is a sort of a permanent Burning Man with everyone just putting on a show for each other all the time. Okay, and then you get to the little farewell to Fleur Imzaho. Goodbye, we'll never meet again. And then the question, I think this is what you're getting at. So Gergei asks, one thing... When Nikasar fired that gun and the ray came off the mirror field, which is the first time we actually find out it was a mirror field, it's all been very confusing up until then, and hit him.
I thought you found that out in the last...
Oh, it's kind of implied, like if you know that there are mirror fields, you could tell that's what it was, but it was all very confusing. So it's kind of an explanation here. So when Nikasar fired that gun and the ray came off the mirror field and hit him, was that coincidence, or did you aim it? He thought it wasn't going to answer him. But just before the door closed and the wedge of light thrown over it disappeared with the rising craft, he heard the drone say, "I'm not going to tell you."
Do you think he did it?
It's kind of one of those hand shot first things, isn't it?
Mm.
I think it was deliberate. I think he murdered Nikasar. I mean, murder's a little strong. I think self-defense was, entirely justified at that point. So we've got a small dog and a small cat misbehaving. This is all Sheridan's fault.
Got a cute little kitten.
Yeah. So why did you highlight that?
Well, it's just, I mean, it's kind of cool. You don't get the answer, but I kind of wanted the answer. I'm glad that we got the answer to who the narrator was, because
Yep.
I felt like I couldn't really deal with two unknowns in the final 4 pages.
Right. Okay.
What do you think?
About what? Oh yeah, I mean, I liked it as a scene. You know, it felt a little, I guess, almost Blade Runner-ish with the, it's dark and the lights disappearing as the door closes, and it's snowing, I believe. But yeah, okay, and then so Gergely gets into the house, and there's a surprise party for him.
Yeah, and he's clearly like really happy to be back.
Well, I think he was really flat until he got surprised.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to say, yay, Meris Tanu. That's a bit of nominative determinism going on there, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Like, if you get called yay, you're going to be a woo girl, aren't you? I mean, she's not some bookish librarian stroking a cat all the time, is she?
No. And she's clearly done well for herself in Gergely's absence.
Well, her or himself at this particular moment, given that she's halfway through a gender transition.
Yes. The gender transitioning is quite progressive.
We've mentioned that before.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't hurt to mention again.
There's actually a sex scene that...
Transgender sex scene, yeah.
Or
transitioning sex scene.
I was actually thinking about this. It's actually almost like an intersex sex scene theme.
Yeah.
Sex scene, sorry.
Yeah. It's one of the things I was thinking about this that I actually quite like is, like, and I don't want to have a go at people who do things that are very out there saying, I will make a story and all the heroes will be a certain race or a certain sexuality. And that's fair enough. People, can do their own things. But what he's done here is create a series of exciting stories in a society that just happens to be almost uniformly transgender.
Is it transgender though? Because, yeah, look, because I could finally do some research, because I can't actually do any research when I read these books because I get spoilers.
Right.
But because I read the chapter, I felt I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started to do a little bit of Googling about Ian M. Banks and what people thought about his, use of gender.
Mm.
Now, people have a lot of problem with The Wasp Factory, which
isn't one of the culture books, but is by the same author. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was also his first book, so he was very young and still...
Trans people apparently hate the book because the main character's trans, but it's quite transphobic.
Mm.
And so, there was I read a few forums where trans people were like, I don't know if I want to read these culture books because I read The Wasp Factory and I really hated it. And it made me, feel icky.
I mean, a book called The Wasp Factory is going to make you feel icky anyway. But yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see heaps about it. So I'd be kind of curious to know what trans and intersex people think about the books.
Look, we could actually ask some trans people because we know quite a few. I know of at least one trans friend of ours who really, really, really likes the culture books. But obviously not all trans people.
But then I was kind of wondering if there was more to Ian M. Banks, and because it is obviously something he's doing through multiple books.
A thing that I really liked about this, and I've been thinking about it out on the dog walk this evening before we did this, is that the love affair between Ye and Gergely, which does progress, when we meet her at the start, she doesn't want to sleep with Gergely. She just wants to be his friend. And he's jonesing for her, but can't get there. And it actually does him a huge favour to have something that he can't have. And then by the end, where they're deciding to get together, but they are still intersex, he is purely in love with them, as a person, not them as a woman.
Yeah, true.
And that's a really neat idea, that if you've got a society where you no longer need to partner with someone for life simply so you can get a mortgage together and have security of shelter, you probably are going to need to have relationships that are more platonic on one level or platonically inspired.
I thought the pronouns thing's kind of funny because when they refer to Ye fathering a child, they revert back to the male pronoun and say he will meet the child in a year. But I was like, but hang on, won't Ye be a she then?
I don't think...
Or is Ye going to go...
Well, obviously, this is a society with much greater gender fluidity than we're used to. So the idea of referring to someone by their past pronouns being offensive gets probably less important, given that they're going to flip a few times through their lives.
Oh, yeah, I get that, but I was just like... But also, they call drones...
They?
No, they call drones it.
Well, some people call them it, but they're they-thems.
Yeah, but he doesn't use the they-them pronouns. I mean, maybe it just...
He does for drones.
Really? I thought it was an it.
Well, it depends. It isn't the only pronoun.
True, yeah, okay. They definitely refer to drones as... He definitely refers to drones as it.
Yeah.
Which...
Generally pejoratively, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all you got on that one? That bit?
Actually, if we could just go back... Actually, I don't think it's back. I think we're on board. I really liked the... Well, I'll read the paragraph. Gurgay sipped his lukewarm wine. So I slept all the way back until 2 days out. And now it all seems, I don't know, deep frozen, not fresh, but not decayed yet, not gone. And I think that's actually a really good way of describing a traumatic memory.
Yep.
That there's distance between it, but it's not dead. It's or it's dead, but it's still there. Kind of rotting in your brain. Like that's...
Well, how you deal with the trauma is whether it's rotting or not. But the fact that it's preserved but no longer living. Yes. One thing, a line that I loved was when Gurgay... he's like, oh, I've changed, haven't I? And Gurgay nods and she said, just changing back, she said. Another few months and I'll be back where I started. Gurgay, you should have seen me as a man. I was dashing.
And then doesn't, what's his name go? Oh, he was insufferable. What's his name? Chambliss, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's, Gurgay's describing his story and the description of Chambliss was quiet and its fields changed slowly through many colours. Ye grew slowly more concerned looking. She shook her head frequently, gasped several times and looked ill twice. In between, she kept the fire stoked with logs. Just the friends being like, oh, God, this hasn't been a nice holiday.
Now, can I just say something? Having obviously struggled to read this book, there's no way this story could be told in that detail over only that many glasses of wine. They would have had to have several dinner parties to be able to tell it.
I don't know. I mean, I've come back from long trips and sort of spent a couple of hours telling the story. Often ideally with slides. No, I've never done that, but I know people who have. And we're kind of at the end here. Well, the end of Gurgay's story with... he steps out onto the balcony and then Gurgay looked up and saw among the clouds, so meaning the Magellanic clouds where he'd been, their ancient light hardly wavering in the cold, calm air. He watched his breath go out before him like a damp smoke between him and those distant stars, and shoved his chilled hands into the jacket pockets for warmth. One touched something softer than the snow and he brought it out, a little dust. He looked up from it at the stars again and the view was warped and distorted by something in his eyes, which at first he thought was rain. Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
You missed a bit.
What?
You missed the Moran Skell little...
No, that's coming.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. Once you get through that paragraph...
Apologies.
You get to our mystery narrator unveiling themselves.
No. You missed that Chambliss has got a little trophy, which is...
Well, they mentioned that in the last chapter, that he'd mounted him.
Oh, okay. I
That was the
forgot
message
about
from
that.
Chambliss.
Ah, sorry.
Saying, someone had delivered me the carcass of Mormon
Well,
Skill.
there was so much in the chapter, it slipped me by. It slipped by me.
Yeah. But so then we get our mystery narrator unveiling himself.
Yes.
The description of Chambliss's death is kind of, I don't know, nice or sad. If you're reading this, he's long dead, had his appointment with the displacement drone and been zapped to the very livid heart of the system, core blasted to plasma in the very heart of the sun. I mean, if you're going to decide it's time to go, that's not a bad way.
So what's the go with the sign-off name?
Moram Skell.
But Fleur Imsaho.
Yeah.
Were they the same person?
Yeah.
So that's where you find that out.
That's the big reveal.
Right, okay. Well, it just wasn't so obvious to me. Like, I'm like, maybe it's just like a common name.
I mean, remember at the end of Consider Phlebas, it literally ends on the name of the mind.
Oh, yeah, true. But so, hang on though. How does Chambliss mount Fleur Imsaho?
Because the bit of Fleur Imsaho's mind, the CPU, you could say, isn't in there. So they've taken the body, the mind, out of Moram Skell's original body and put it into Fleur Imsaho. Or put it into the body that we came to know as Fleur Imsaho.
I'm really confused.
What's confusing you about this?
Well, so how do they get Fleur Imsaho? Isn't there a point when they can't physically they're on different ships?
No, because Moram Skell disappears, never to be seen again. Okay. And then Gerge gets introduced to a new drone that is told his name's Fleur Imsaho. Okay. Then the external casing of Moram Skell gets sent to Gerge's house, and he's hanging out with Fleur Imsaho. And then the Fleur Imsaho right at the end here, Fleur Imsaho, yeah, is saying, "Oh, by the way, my name's actually Moram Skell. I've been here the whole time. Ha ha! They never guessed."
So when he says, "I won't see him ever again," but like, will he?
Well, maybe not. He's off. It's a big galaxy. He's not planning to hang around. He's got other missions.
All right.
Okay, well, having... And I would note, big reveals about actual names is... this isn't the last time we're going to encounter those. But, Sheridan, it's now your job to tell people what you thought about all that.
What do you mean?
The book, The Player of Games. You've got to the end.
Ugh.
You weren't so keen on the culture by the end of Consider Phlebas. How are you feeling about the culture now?
They've grown on me.
Mm-hmm.
They've grown on me quite a bit. I mean, look, I did find this book a struggle.
Was that just because you were moving house in the middle of it and the chapters were really long, or were there
It's
things
just
you
that the
didn't like about
chapters
it?
were way too long. I think maybe we should have, like, I don't know, done podcasts about, like, sections or something.
They didn't really have sections, though. And it would have been very hard for the readers to mark them out. Because, of course, it's like, you're reading via audiobooks, I'm reading on one version on a Kindle, you're reading on another version on a Kindle.
I like the game playing aspect was very well done and created a lot of drama, even though you didn't really know anything about the game. Like, you felt like you were like, oh, the tension was there, even though you didn't actually understand the game.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's always good at writing action scenes, and they were essentially action scenes.
True.
Yeah.
Gerge as a character, I don't know, didn't do a lot for me. Didn't feel like he developed a lot.
You didn't feel like he developed?
Well, maybe not. Like, he just was interested in games the whole time.
He started as a game player who was... I mean, he lost the first 2 games we saw him play on the Orbital.
Yeah.
And then he sort of blossomed into the game of Azad and became a marauding empire-destroying monster.
In the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he does that all the time.
Does he?
Well, in these other games.
You didn't see him, though.
No, but you got a sense that was his vibe.
Yeah, okay. I mean, well, I think he hardened up. I mean, but also he was very much being sharpened and positioned by the culture to become what he, the empire destroyer that he became. But anyway, okay, so you felt the Gurgay didn't change too much. I mean, he went from someone who Ye didn't want to sleep with to someone Ye did want to sleep with.
Well, how convenient.
Sure. Okay. Anyway, your opinions are your own. Did you have any other feelings or thoughts about the book as we wrap this up?
The drones have become a lot more interesting to me.
Okay. How so?
Well, clearly
Even
they're...
if you're not sure who they are or what they're doing.
Shut up. Well, clearly they're a bit more... they're a bit more self-actualizing than you think they are.
They're fully independent.
They're fully independent.
They're not there just to be servants.
Yes.
Although you could say that about the drone in Consider Flavors as well. But that was your first drone, whereas now you've had two very different drones as well. I guess you could say 3 very different drones in that Flareem Soho was a very different personality to what he presented when he was playing Morum Skell.
Yeah. I felt the Empire destroys itself pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's had a real number done on it, though. Yeah, I mean, any point where... I mean, the Banks does talk about an idea that he didn't invent, but that was very popular in the 80s, and still gets written about by people, of what's called an outside context problem.
Yep.
And that very few civilizations can recover from an outside context problem. And, the culture and essentially represents an outside context problem to the Empire of Azad. And basically, the course of the novel is the culture deciding, to some extent, largely via Gurgay, whether it wants to destroy this civilization by presenting an outside context problem. In that they're like, we could just leave them alone, but they're horrible and they're inflicting pain on other cultures, and they're inflicting pain on their own citizens, and they're beyond what we're willing to tolerate. Yeah. Even in another galaxy, which is a bit scary. Okay, so no other thoughts on player games? We're ready to crack on to use of weapons.
Can you please tell me these chapters are more novel-sized?
Oh, yeah, you can do one while you're having a poo.
Something to look forward to in the morning.
Yeah. Okay, now it's time for our whiskey review. So I had a quite significant birthday recently, so lots of people gave me bottles of whiskey, which is very nice.
Drinking them faster than we can produce shows.
Well, you'll just have to read chapters quicker, won't you? So what we have here is called The Shin, and it's called a Mizunara blended whiskey with a Japanese oak finish. I don't actually know what Japanese oak tastes like, so I'm assuming it tastes mostly like...
Probably like this.
Well, other people's oak as well. It's
Ooh,
oak,
that's
right?
smooth.
Oh, I mean, it's a Japanese whiskey. You'd expect it to be smooth. It tastes a little bourbony, which is... I'm not saying that as a criticism or a problem. Apparently, the Shinobu Distillery is located in Niigata, prefecture surrounded by the Sea of Japan and beautiful mountains. It's praised for its 3 white treasures, the snow, rice, and sake.
It has. I think it has a bit of a smell like sake, but maybe it's just alcohol.
So this has been aged in ex-bourbon and sherry cask. So my bourbon pick was there. Look, I don't know what it costs. I'm assuming it's not a cheap whiskey, but there's nothing about it that is hugely striking, which can be a problem. But if you want a very smooth, very pleasant whiskey to drink over a couple of ice cubes, and you want to know what Japanese oak tastes like, then I've got no reason not to recommend it. How about you, Sharon?
I actually quite like it. I think it's really easy to drink.
Mm.
It's very warming in the throat afterwards.
Well, these are all things one would expect from a good quality whiskey. But yeah. So it tastes like a good quality whiskey is the conclusion we're coming to here. Okay, well, we're running up on half an hour, which is a fair amount of time for a little podcast episode. So, folks, it's time to start reading. Use of weapons. Some would say the Everest of Ian Banks novels.
Oh, God, why?
Oh, you'll find out.
Oh, no.
Is it going to be hard? The chapters are nice and short.
Is it hard?
No.
Oh. Well, Everest sounds hard.
Every step is fine.
Okay.
I would say if for some reason you're someone who's never read any Ian M. Banks novels or never read Use of Weapons, just treat each chapter like a short story and then let it all come together for you. So I guess that's my advice to you, Sheridan, is that just let each chapter be a short story.
I'm going to be really confused, aren't I?
Each chapter will stand on its own quite well. Now, the one thing, just as a note to listeners, we're going to do the prelude poem and the first... No, sorry, there's a poem and then the prelude, or the prologue. So we'll do those for the next episode, and then we'll get into the chapter that follows that, because the numbering of the chapters is a bit of an issue.
I'm looking very worried.
It's all going to be great. We're going to have a wonderful time. Well, not all of us. Some of those characters are going to have a horrible time. Okay. Thank you so much for listening, folks. We hope we can be delivering faster service moving forward. And we'll be back in your ears soon.
Bye.